This food situation is getting very interesting when it comes to the meat. Now, we have been reporting about the pork production. It has been reduced here in the United States because of outbreaks of the coronavirus. They talk about that would affect meat as well as beef, and also affect chicken. But now they're talking about boneless chicken could be the first meat to disappear from the store shelves. So when the supply chain has been, affected, poultry has been hit harder from the coronavirus crisis, and some North American producers are seeking to scale back on boneless chicken in an effort to streamline production lines. So they say in the recent weeks, you have 18 beef and pork processing plants in the U.S. have announced closures due to suspected and confirmed coronavirus outbreaks, while chicken plants have fully shut down. So the chicken is shut down, ladies and gentlemen. OK, so they say poultry plants are generally smaller and more automated than beef and pork facilities, making them more resistant to outbreaks. They say, but the labor shortages, they say, have forced some producers to euthanize chickens by the millions and switch production lines away from more labor intensive products, including boneless chicken. So if you can't find boneless chicken coming soon, you may be like, what happened to it? What I'm just reporting to you what's going on with your boneless chicken. Now, they say is that chickens have been killed in the millions now. You understand? They having so many animals left over, they're having to euthanize them, which is sad. Why don't you just go on and go old school and just sell the chickens and let people just do it themselves? Some people that know how to do that. Why can't you do that? Why would you just euthanize them? It doesn't make sense, right? Now, they said Tyson and Purdue Foods, two of the largest U.S. poultry producers, did not immediately respond to inquiries, they said, regarding their boneless chicken lines. They said, but in Delaware and Maryland, farmers were forced to euthanize more than, as we stated earlier, 2 million chickens this month after many of its workers were sidelined by illness or quarantine, according to industry officials. So it said the Delmarva poultry industry said that every poultry plant in the Delmarva Peninsula has struggled with reduced worker attendance. As farmers have also been forced to euthanize pigs across the country. Said cows can continue to graze. He said, but many pigs are fattened indoors on a tight schedule. And if they become too fat, they lose their value and continue to be injured. OK, you also lost 10% of your beef processing as well. So, as we talked about in the previous video, Trump had put in the Defense Production Act, won't let them shut down, saying people got to get back to work, with the unions and say, no, we're not going to do that. So I don't see how he can force them to go to work when the people don't want to go to work. I don't see how he can enforce it. I was reading another article that was talking about the next pandemic won't be a virus, but they say it may be a global food shortages in a lot of places because the virus had affected a lot of workers and a lot of meats and things like that were affected. So, they're already saying what's going to be an issue and problem. So 2020 has definitely been an interesting year so far. I never thought I would hear here in the United States talking about you having a shortage of certain foods. But as we stated before, start getting acclimated to a plant-based diet. That's what I would suggest, because, meats may be too expensive. And if it's too expensive, then what's the point? You understand? Go back old school. You want something, go, catch you some fish like they used to do back in the day. I remember people say, hey, we're going to have fish today. So get up early in the morning and they go fishing, get a bunch of fish and do that. Now I know, of course, that's not nothing I would eat daily, of course, because sometimes the fish have too much mercury at times. But, some people just got to have meat, so they'll eat fish. Fine. But got to be prepared, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we want to do these stories. I had some people in comments that say, man, that's why I bought a bunch of meat already. I got mine in the deep freezer. I think that's not a bad idea. If you have a deep freezer and you have access to a lot of meat and you got the money to do so. So when it gets short, you're like, I ain't worried. I got all my meat. If you eat meat like that, you got to have meat. This would be the time I would tell you to get your deep freezer and stockpile it, much as possible. I'm just warning you ahead of time to my viewers, to do so before that crowd start doing it like they did with the toilet paper, and you won't be able to get none. But, leave me a comment and think about the situation with the, meat and, You know, how you going to handle it? Are you going to go ahead on and start stockpiling your deep freeze, or are you going to say, forget it, I'm going to go plant-based?